The communist insurgency in Sarawak occurred from 1962 to 1990. Communist objectives in Sarawak were to achieve self-government and independence for the colony and to establish a communist society. The Sarawak Communist Organisation, or known as SCO, operated through both legitimate and secret organizations to propagate a communist ideology. Sarawak Communists were also opposed to the formation of the Federation of Malaysia. The first known Sarawak Communist Organisation operation was an assault on the Batu Kitang Bazaar on 5th August 1952. The Sarawak Communist insurgents were supported by Indonesia until 1965, when President Suharto assumed power and ended the confrontation with Malaysia. The North Kalimantan Communist Party (NKCP) was formed and two main military formations were created, that are Sarawak People's Guerrilla Force (SPGF), or known as Pasukan Guerrilla Rakyat Sarawak (PGRS), and the North Kalimantan People's Army (NKPA), or known as the Pasukan Rakyat Kalimantan Utara (PARAKU). The NKCP leaders were Bong Ki Chok, Yang Chu Chong, and Wen Min Chien. 2 years after the Sarawak joined Federation with Malaya to form Malaysia, in 1965, the Malaysian federal government created several control areas along the Kuching to Serian Road. In response to the Sarawak Communist Organisation's activities, the Sarawak and Malaysian Federal resorted to various counter-insurgency operations. On 30th June 1965, the Sarawak Government's Operations Subcommittee of the State Security Executive Council implemented the Goodsir Plan, which is the resettlement of 7,500 people in 5 temporary settlements along the Kuching to Serian Road. These settlements were protected by barbed wire and modeled similar to the new villages used earlier during the Malayan emergency. By the end of 1965, 63 suspected communist activities had been identified by the authorities. The federal government had built 3 permanent settlements at Siburan, Baratok, and Tapah to replace the 5 temporary settlements, which covered 600 acres and were designed to accommodate 8,000 settlers. Between 1967 and 1968, Indonesian and Malaysian military forces took part in joint operations against the Sarawak Communists, which took an increasingly heavy toll on both the Sarawak People's Guerrilla Force and the North Kalimantan Liberation Army. On July 1970, following the state election, SUPP then joined a coalition with the Alliance Party, or known as Barisan Nasional by today, partner in Sarawak, Parti Pesaka Bumiputra Bersatu, which after that enabled the Malaysian federal government to consolidate its control over Sarawak. In exchange, Stephen Yong was appointed to the State Operations Committee, which enabled the party to influence counter-insurgency operation. In 1972, Tun Abdul Razak established the Rajang Area Security Command, or simply known as RASCOM, a Malaysian security forces that covers the area of Rajang River from Sibu, Sarike, and Kapit. The establishment was due to several incidents of massacres, riots, and property damage by the communists. In 1973-74, the Malaysian federal government scored a key victory when Tun Abdul Rahman Yaakob successfully convinced one of the NKCP leaders, Bong Ki Chok, to surrender along with 481 of his supporters. This was a heavy loss for the NKCP, since this number comprised approximately 75% of the NKCP's entire force and only 121 guerrilla fighters led by Hung Chu Ting and Wong Lian Kui remained. By 1974, the communist insurgency had become confined to the Rajang Delta. Both sides sustained casualties and many civilians were also killed and wounded in the crossfire. Following the successful Hat Yai peace accords between the MCP and the Malaysian government in 1989, the remaining NKCP guerrillas decided to end their insurgency after one of their Chinese contacts, Wang Min Chien, convinced them to negotiate with the Sarawak state government. By 17 October 1990, a peace agreement formally ending the insurgency was ratified at Wisma Bapak Malaysia in the state capital Kuching. Shortly afterwards, the last remaining NKCP operatives, led by Ang Cho Teng, surrendered. This development ended the communist insurgency in Sarawak. Well, that's all from me. Happy Malaysia Day, unity, peace and harmony.